Ever wondered what it really takes, like the actual nuts and bolts, to get your own online store up and running?
Yeah, beyond the hype.
Exactly. Welcome to this deep dive. We're skipping the gurus today and looking at, the real costs, the genuine potential for profit, and the actual timeline involved in launching an e-commerce business, specifically using Shopify.
Right. We've looked at a pretty detailed guide, haven't we, covering investment, profit, setup, different product models, marketing costs, all that stuff.
Yeah, risks, even a suggested budget. So our mission here is really to give you a crystal clear picture if you're maybe thinking about this path, cut through the online fluff, offer some solid usable info.
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's dive straight in. The big question first. What's the initial financial hit we're looking at? How much cash do you actually need up front?
Right. That's always the starting point, isn't it? Understanding where the money goes. And the source gives us a pretty clear breakdown. First, you've got the Shopify plan itself.
The subscription fee.
Exactly. It's monthly. There are three main tiers. Basic, which is around 3,250 rupees a month. Then there's the standard Shopify plan at 8,750.
Okay.
And the advanced one at 33,250. But the thing is, most beginners, they really just need the basic plan. It usually has everything to get you off the ground.
Okay, so that's the core platform cost.
Mhm.
What else is on that initial list?
Next up, your domain name. That's your website address, like your store.com or .in.
Right.
You're looking at maybe 800 to 1,200 rupees for a year. You can get these from places like GoDaddy, Namecheap, the usual suspects.
Like website real estate.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Then there's the look of your store, the theme. Now, Shopify gives you free themes, which are great for starting.
Totally free.
Yeah, perfectly usable. But if you want something maybe a bit more unique or with specific features, premium themes are a one-time cost. Could be anywhere from, say, 12,000 up to 30,000 rupees.
Okay, so that's a bigger chunk potentially.
Yeah.
But you could start without that cost.
You absolutely could. So, yeah, in theory, you could kick things off with just the basic plan and a domain for under $5,000 for the first month, plus that yearly domain fee. Pretty accessible.
Seems that way. But I'm guessing that's not the whole story. What about adding extra features and stuff?
Yes. That's where the apps come in. Think of them like add-ons for your store.
Like plugins.
Exactly. For things like customer reviews, email marketing automation, upsells, loads of things. And the cost, it varies massively. Some are free. Some could cost you up to maybe 10,000 rupees a month or even more, depending on what you need.
Right, depends on the functionality.
Yeah. And then the big one, actually getting the products you're going to sell, the product sourcing cost. This looks completely different depending on your business model.
Okay, yeah. Because you've got drop shipping.
Right.
Where you don't hold the stock.
Right.
And then the old school way, buying it yourself.
Precisely. With dropshipping, the big plus is no huge upfront inventory cost. You only pay your supplier when a customer actually buys something. But if you go the other route, buying inventory, holding stock yourself, maybe in a spare room or whatever you're looking at, an initial investment, that could be, well, anywhere from 20,000 rupees to a lakh, maybe even more.
Wow, okay. That's a massive difference.
Huge. Depends entirely on what you sell and how much you buy. It's a really significant choice, financially speaking.
It really is. And, okay, you build this great store, you've got your products, but people need to find it, right? So marketing. What's the budget needed there?
Yeah, you can't just build it and expect them to come. Marketing and advertising are crucial. And they're an ongoing cost, too. The source suggests a pretty wide range, again, maybe 10,000 to over a lakh per month.
Per month.
Yeah. But the recommendation for starting out is usually around 10,000 to 20,000 rupees for that first month or two, just to start getting some data, see what works.
Okay.
So you can see those initial costs really do depend heavily on the choices you make right at the start.
Definitely paints a clearer picture of the outgoing column. Okay, let's flip the coin. The bit everyone's waiting for. Money coming in. What's the potential profit look like?
Yeah, the exciting part. But it's really important to be realistic here. Profit isn't guaranteed, It depends so much on your product, your marketing effectiveness, and crucially, your store's conversion rate.
Conversion rate meaning how many visitors actually buy something.
Exactly that percentage. The source gives us a helpful example, though, to kind of illustrate the potential.
Okay, let's walk through it.
Right. So imagine your product costs you 500 rupees to get.
Okay.
And you sell it on your store for 1,200 rupees.
Right, so 700 difference.
Yeah, that's your initial margin, 700 rupees.
Yeah.
But then you have to factor in other costs per sale. The example estimates around 300 rupees per sale.
For what exactly?
Things like Shopify's transaction fees, a portion of your advertising spend for that sale, payment gateway charges, that kind of stuff.
Got it.
So you take that 300 away from the 700 margin, and you're left with a net profit of 400 rupees per product sold.
Okay, 400 rupees clear profit on each one. That seems straightforward.
It does. And then the example scales it up. It says, okay, what if you manage to sell 300 of these in a month?
So 300 times 400.
Which comes out to 1,020,000 rupees profit for the month.
Wow. Okay, that sounds pretty good.
It does sound good, but, and this is a big but, it's just an example, a hypothetical scenario, real-world results can be very different. Costs can fluctuate, sales can vary. You know how it is.
Absolutely. Definitely not a promise, but it shows the potential if things align. So, okay, when can someone realistically expect to even break even, let alone hit those kinds of numbers? What's the timeline?
Yeah, the timeline question, the source suggests being patient. Month one,
Yeah.
usually a loss.
Makes sense with setup costs and testing.
Exactly. You're spending money, figuring things out, testing ads, maybe tweaking the website. Months 2 and 3, that's often when you start getting a feel for what's actually selling, identifying the winners.
Okay, so finding your feet.
Kind of. Then maybe around month 4 onwards, if your product is right and your marketing is hitting the mark, that's when you could potentially start seeing consistent sales and hopefully actual profit. But it really hinges on those ifs.
Right. It's not automatic.
Not at all. And just circling back to that total starting cost range, the source mentioned it could be anywhere from about 25,000 rupees up to 1.5 lakh or more. Big range, all based on those early choices.
That is a wide spread.
Yeah.
Okay, let's dig a bit more into that setup stuff. We talked about Shopify plans. You said basic is often enough for starters.
Yeah. For most people launching, that basic plan at 3,250 a month, it really does the job. You get your online store, product management, order processing, basic reports, all the essentials.
And the pricier plans, what do they offer?
Mostly things that become important as you grow, like more staff accounts if you have a team, much more detailed reporting and analytics, and significantly lower transaction fees on each sale. So once your sales volume gets really high, upgrading can actually save you money.
Okay. That makes sense. So start basic, upgrade later if needed.
That's usually the smart way to go.
And the domain name, anything specific to watch out for there, like .com versus .in?
Good question. Generally, .com or .in are the most recognized and trusted. Doesn't usually make a huge difference functionally, maybe more about perception for your target audience. And yeah, GoDaddy, Namecheap are fine, but you can often buy it directly through Shopify when you sign up, which keeps things simple.
Right. And themes. We mentioned free versus premium. Any other angles there?
Well, the free ones are great for budget, obviously. Premium themes often give you more customization options, maybe a slightly more polished look out of the box, and sometimes they have features built in that you might otherwise need an app for.
Potentially saving app costs.
Potentially, yeah. And then there's the high-end option, totally custom theme development. If you have very specific needs and a bigger budget, think 50,000 rupees plus, you could get one built just for you. But that's not usually where beginners start.
No, probably not. And those apps, can you give a couple more specific examples of what they actually do?
Sure. So if you're drop shipping, apps like Oberlo's or de-essers are super common. They help you find products from suppliers like AliExpress and import them right into your Shopify store. Makes life easier. Then you've got email marketing tools. Klaviyo is a big one. It lets you send newsletters, abandoned cart emails, all that automated stuff to keep customers engaged.
Crucial for repeat business.
Absolutely. And apps like Judge.me or Looks, they help you collect and display customer reviews on your product pages. That builds trust, what they call social proof. Huge impact on conversions. There are apps for everything, really shipping, loyalty programs, upsells.
Right, a whole ecosystem.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got the store tech sorted. Let's pivot back to the products themselves. Drop shipping versus holding inventory. Can we break down the pros and cons a bit more?
Definitely. Let's start with drop shipping again. Big pro. Low startup cost. No buying stock up front, no warehousing. You list products, customer buys, supplier ships direct. Great for testing ideas without much risk.
Sounds good. What's the catch?
The catches are usually lower profit margins, typically, maybe 20% to 50%. And less control. You're relying on the supplier for product quality, shipping times. If they mess up, it reflects badly on your brand.
Right, you're the middleman, essentially.
Pretty much. So less control, potentially lower margin, but much lower initial risk.
Okay. And the other way, private label or holding your own inventory.
Right. Here, you're either getting products manufactured with your own branding or just buying existing products in bulk. You store them, you ship them.
So more work.
More work and a much higher initial investment, remember. That 30K to 1 lakh plus figure for buying the stock. But the upside, potentially much higher profit margins, maybe 40% to 80%. And you have full control over the product quality, the packaging, the customer experience. You're building your brand directly.
Okay, so higher risk, higher potential reward, more control.
Exactly. It really comes down to your risk appetite and your starting capital. One model usually makes more sense than the other depending on those factors.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, now driving those sales, let's really break down the marketing costs. Facebook and Instagram ads seem huge in e-commerce.
They are. They're often the starting point for many stores. The source suggests a starting daily budget might be, say, 500 to 5,000 rupees.
Daily.
Yeah, daily. But the key isn't just the spend, it's how smart you spend it. You need to constantly test different ad creatives, the images, the videos, the text, see what resonates. A typical conversion rate might be around 2% to 4%.
So for every 100 people clicking, maybe 2 to 4 buy.
Roughly, yeah. It varies wildly, of course, but that's a ballpark. So you need good ads and a website that converts well.
Right. It's not just the ad, it's the whole journey. What about Google ads?
Google ads are great for tapping into search intent. People are literally typing in what they want.
Like buy red running shoes, size 10.
Exactly. You're catching them when they're actively looking. The cost per click varies a lot based on competition for keywords, but the source suggests maybe 10 to 20 rupees per click as an average starting point can be very effective for certain products.
Okay. And influencers. Are they worth considering?
They definitely can be, especially for niche products. If you find an influencer whose audience matches your target customer perfectly, it can work really well. Costs range massively, maybe 1,000 rupees for a small story shout out, up to 10,000 or way more for a post from a bigger name. Engagement can be very high.
Right. Finding the right fit is key there.
Totally.
Let's just quickly revisit that profit scenario, the 1.2 lakh a month example. How do these ad costs fit into that?
Good question. Remember that estimated 300 rupees per sale deduction?
Yeah, for Shopify fees, payment gateways, and ads.
Exactly. That 300 rupees has to cover the average advertising cost needed to acquire that one sale. So to hit that 1.2 lakh profit selling 10 products a day, your marketing needs to be efficient enough to bring in those sales within that 300 rupee per sale budget.
Which might be tough at the start.
Very likely tough at the start. The source rightly points out you might have days, even weeks, with zero sales initially, especially while you're testing and learning what ad strategies actually work. That initial phase needs patience and careful budget management.
Sounds like a definite learning curve. Speaking of which, what are the common roadblocks or challenges people hit when starting out? And how do you tackle them?
Yeah, the source lists a few common pitfalls. One big one is ad costs getting too high, eating all your profit.
Right.
Solutions there involve things like retargeting, showing ads again to people who visited your site but didn't buy, and just constantly optimizing your campaigns, analyzing the data, tweaking things.
Okay. What else?
Just no sales. Especially at the beginning. It happens.
Discouraging.
It can be. The advice is to A/B test everything. Try different ad images, different headlines, different audiences, maybe even test different products, see what resonates. A/B testing is just comparing two versions, A versus B, to see which works better.
It's your back in constantly.
Pretty much. Then there are refunds and returns. It's part of e-commerce.
Inevitable, I guess.
Yeah. Best defense. Have super clear return policies up front. And if you hold inventory, do some quality control before shipping. It minimizes issues.
Thanks, Sam.
Payment gateway delays can also be a pain. Using established providers like RazorPay or PayU helps, but understand their processes and potential holdups. And finally, just the Shopify platform itself. It's user-friendly, but there's still a learning curve.
So how do you manage that?
Lean on the resources. There are tons of tutorials, YouTube videos, Shopify's own help docs, online forums. Don't be afraid to ask for help. The key is being proactive, anticipating these issues, and having a plan.
Right, not just reacting when things go wrong. Okay, so it's definitely work. Now, for someone listening who's maybe thinking, okay, that 1.5 lakh starting figure sounds scary, what does that lower budget, more bootstrapped starting plan look like?
Yeah, the source gives a good low budget breakdown. It looks something like this. Shopify basic plan about $3,250 a month. Domain name maybe $1,000 for the year.
Right.
Use a free Shopify theme, so zero cost there initially.
Good save.
A few essential starter apps, budget, maybe 2,000 rupees for those.
Okay.
Product samples, this is important, even for drop shipping. Need to see the quality. Budget maybe 10,000 rupees for that.
Right. Makes sense.
And then first month's marketing budget, maybe start with 15,000 rupees to get the ball rolling.
Okay, so adding that up.
Comes to roughly 30,000 to 35,000 rupees as an initial budget.
Okay, that feels much more manageable for someone testing the waters.
Exactly. It's a lean start, focusing on the absolute essentials to get launched and start finding customers.
But important to remember, as you said, it's a low-end estimate. Could still vary based on the product, the specific apps you really need, etc.
Absolutely. It prioritizes getting started over having all the bells and whistles immediately. You reinvest profits later to upgrade themes, apps, and marketing spend as you grow.
Got it. Okay, finally, the source had some extra tips for success, right? Beyond just the costs and setup.
Yeah, some really crucial ones that often get missed. First, choose a winning product. Sounds obvious, but really focus on something that solves a real problem or has a strong emotional connection.
Product is king.
Always. Second, focus on your brand, your logo, colors, the message. Be consistent. Build something people recognize and trust.
Right, not just a random store.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Third, specifically for India, consider offering cash on delivery, COD. It still builds a lot of trust and can really boost your conversion rate here.
Good practical tip.
Fourth, customer service. Make it easy for people to contact you, WhatsApp, chat, email. Respond quickly. Build that trust. It pays off massively in loyalty and reviews.
Yes, service matters hugely online.
And finally, track everything. Use Google Analytics, use the Facebook Pixel, understand your website traffic, see what campaigns are working, where people drop off. Data is your best friend for making improvement.
So true. Gotta know your numbers. Okay, fantastic. Let's just quickly recap the main takeaways then. Starting on Shopify involves, well, a range of costs. Profit potential is there, but it takes time, the right product, and smart marketing.
And that initial investment can swing from maybe 30,000 rupees on the low end up to 1.5 lakh or more, depending on your choices, especially dropshipping versus inventory.
Right, and remember that profit example is just that, an example. Your mileage will vary.
Definitely. Think carefully about those product models and how you plan to market your store.
Absolutely. Okay, final thought for everyone listening then. Considering these numbers, these timelines, what's the very first single concrete step you would take right now to start exploring your own e-commerce idea?
That's a great question to ponder. Is it product research? Is it defining your customer? Is it just signing up for a free Shopify trial to look around? Taking that first step is often the hardest but most important.
Indeed it is. Great stuff. Thanks for taking this deep dive into Shopify with us.
My pleasure.
Until our next exploration.